Birth your baby, rebirth yourself. Who is in charge of your birth? Most people will say, my OBGYN. And that is definitely what decades of medical programming has encouraged you to think. My assertion is that the most powerful, wise, and accomplished guide for your birth is your own body and intuition. After all, your genetic code has been doing this for millennia, longer than a doctor who spent a few years in school learning how to best interfere with the natural birthing process of women. Who would you rather? And I am not being hyperbolic when I use the word interfere. I have demonstrated this over several podcast episodes on the topic, how the only thing the medical system delivers is your power out of your hands and body into theirs. In this week's episode, I am letting the bodies and vaginas speak for themselves. I'm interviewing two women, all-stars, who are graduates from my Sexy Mama Salon, and they each have two very different stories, but there is one similar thread that runs through the both of them. My body, my birth. In both of their experiences, these women had previous births where they allowed others who are self-proclaimed authorities to tell them what to do. And what I adore about all of these women is that they took their subsequent births into their own hands and said, I am in charge here. I trust that my body is the ultimate midwife and birthing genius and that I've got this. And they did. In these conversations about pregnancy and birth, one of the main messages I want people listening and watching to walk away with is the ability to birth children is encoded into every ounce of your DNA. The modern industrial birth system is designed to manufacture crises that justify additional interference. This interference ensures that OBGYNs and the medical profession have jobs. If you didn't have problems birthing your baby, they would not have anything to do and no day to save. By turning birth into a medical emergency, and they've had to work very hard to do this because it isn't one by nature, they have created a place not only in their profession as seeming necessary, but they have also done the much larger disservice of imprinting upon every person who goes through the system that they, in effect, are powerless. That you and your body have no power or wisdom. They have all of it. And then this imprinting is put upon every mother, father, and baby who has the, what I would call, misfortune to birth in a hospital. By defaulting to this system of entrenched powerlessness, a woman is missing out on one of the biggest gifts and rites of passage of her life in a female body, which is giving birth. I came across the birth story of a fitness influencer the other day. Her name is Skye, and she is Australian and one of those people who has built a massive following by way of her workouts. She was pregnant with her second baby, whom she was planning on having at the hospital, just like she did with her first. And here is an excerpt from People magazine on the story. Fitness influencer Skye has a new appreciation for her body after she unexpectedly gave birth to her baby son Isaac at home in June. I didn't know the body could actually do that, Skye tells people of how she pushed out her newborn all on her own without any medication or assistance. Isaac was due on July 3rd, but instead made his grand entrance on June the 18th on his big sister Mia's playmat. Skye, 35 years old, says that the afternoon before she gave birth, she did a workout with Mia, her younger daughter, on her back. I was feeling very heavy between my legs and down my legs and my inner thighs. Skye remembers that she went to bed pretty late that night, around 12:30 a.m., and felt different. I felt kind of weird and calm, Skye says. I went to bed and I woke up with some cramps, which I had been having for about a week leading up to my delivery. They were like period cramps that would come and go, but they got a little bit more intense in the night. I tried to go back to sleep, but I couldn't. They were 6 minutes apart. So I was like, what does this mean? And I started Googling, when do you go to the hospital? I quickly ran around the house, just packing a few extra things because I had already packed my hospital bag. Then I told my partner, Declan, I'm 98% sure I'm in labor. I was leaning over the couch downstairs and my daughter was climbing on my back. We were playing horsey. And I started screaming, get my underwear off! My daughter tried to help and I ended up getting them off, and my partner was on the phone trying to get someone to watch Mia because my mom hadn't arrived. Then he called the ambulance and I was screaming, he's coming! Skye recalls. The moment I took my bottoms off, the water just broke and it went everywhere, and it was a lot. I knew by my partner's face that the head was coming out because he had gone white. He told the lady on the phone, yeah, I can see the head, it's half out. Meanwhile, I am roaring and my daughter Mia is screaming in horror and ends up running off and hiding because she was terrified, Skye shares. The next thing Skye remembers is medical personnel rushing into her home and that Isaac was already 3/4 out. I delivered him on the ground, Skye says. I felt like I wanted to be up on my knees, but they needed me. What the fucking bullshit that is. They needed me to be on my back, and I did a lot of breathing to get me through it. That's so they can stare into her vagina. So she ended up giving birth on her daughter's playmat in the middle of the room on the floor. Skye says that before she gave birth at home, she had dreamed of having a natural birth. A few days earlier, I told my birthing coach that the ideal situation for me would be to labor all at home. That is literally what happened. I manifested it, Skye says, laughing. I cried when I first saw my body in the mirror after I gave birth to Isaac. It wasn't because I didn't like what I saw, it was because I was in love with my body and I was in complete awe of what it had just done. It had literally birthed my son on its own at home. I didn't even have to push. It did it itself. How freaking amazing are our bodies? I have never in my life loved my body more, and instead of criticizing and picking out every little so-called flaw, which I had done for many of my younger years, I cried with joy and gratitude and I thanked it. I had done it all at home and all on my own. I did it. My body did it. My body went into pushing out the baby itself, and I think it's so amazing, she says. I said to myself, if I ever feel like I don't like my body, I need to remember this moment and remember what my body has done. This is fucking amazing. I get emotional just reading it because you can feel her awe and wonderment and the gift of her own power that she has received. I'm like totally emotional. That she has received from this experience. So the reason that I am hammering this point home is this is what I want people to understand. This is how you were supposed to feel coming out of your birth, like you were reborn with all the power and the strength that you need to fully care for your baby and triumph as a parent and as a woman. Birth is the universe's great gift to you as an experience to go through to rebirth and self-actualize yourself. It is a giant enlightenment shortcut that only women have access to. And for whatever multitude of reasons, and some literature even hints at a long-standing patriarchal resentment towards women for even having this magical skill, men have thwarted women in this power and tried to control it for themselves. And through the process of internalized oppression and Stockholm syndrome, women now volunteer it. So, as you listen to these stories, also listen for the confidence, strength, and ultimate self-love and power that was born out of these experiences. These women took back the power in their births, and instead of others telling them what to do and assuming that they knew what was right for them, both of these women said, no, I know what is best for my body, my baby, and my birth. Our first guest is Yvonne. She is Dutch, living in Dubai, and she very much wanted to have a home birth, which are illegal in Dubai. Welcome, Yvonne. I am delighted to have you here to share your stories. You're coming to us from Dubai today.
Yes, I am, and I'm so happy to share my story. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I want more and more women to know what is possible. So I'm so glad that you're up for the task of sharing that with them and being a beacon for them. So you took the Sexy Mama Salon, and prior to that, you had a child, a birth before that. So tell us, to start with, what was your first birth like?
So my first birth was pretty good. I love being pregnant. So my pregnancy was great. And the first birth was pretty quick. So here in Dubai, home birth is not allowed, even though I wished I had a home birth. So we did go to the hospital, and the car ride was actually the most sort of unpleasant part of the whole birth itself, even though it was just 15 minutes. So we reached at the hospital around 6:15. And she was born at 8:34. I had a water birth, and I had pressure on my tailbone, but I didn't have any pain. So I did think at the time sometimes, oh, when is this going to end, because it was so intense. And that was one of my takeaways for the second birth, to think I can do this for 3 days if need be. Yeah, because when you're in a really difficult yoga pose, you think like, okay, 5 more breaths and then you're done, and with this, you just don't know when it is going to end. And yeah, so my takeaway was like, 3 days, I can birth for 3 days. If need be, that's what I'm gonna do. So that was the sort of biggest takeaway that I took from the first birth.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like you did very well first time out of the gate anyway. So then you were inspired to take the Sexy Mama Salon. So what were your goals in taking the salon? Were there any particular blocks that you wanted to shift? It sounds like you had this goal of timelessness, like you wanted to be in a place where you felt like you could handle anything that came at you and you weren't going to be worried about the time that it took. So what were your goals in taking the salon to begin with then?
So I have been following you on Instagram and on your mail list for quite some time already, even before the salon was opened up. And so when I had my first daughter, that's 3 years ago now, and I heard about orgasmic birth, and I was like, who doesn't want that? Who wants to have a painful birth? If it can be orgasmic. And so I did do a lot of things to try with my first birth to have an orgasmic birth. And even though it wasn't orgasmic, it was pain-free, which I was amazed about already. And so when I saw your salon coming up, I was pregnant already. I was I think halfway through, more or less. And I was like, I'm signing up. This is what I need to have. This is what's gonna, set me up for success and give me an orgasmic birth, or at least ecstatic. And so I had a few blocks to clear. I think it's because there's so much negativity out and about. I work in a woman's salon only. I'm a hairstylist, and I hear a lot of birth stories and a lot of concerns from what their ob-gynes are saying, because here you don't have a midwife, you're going to a ob-gyne. Even though if you reach the hospital, the midwives are there for you to help you and guide you. But that's the first time that you know them. So
they don't let you see them before that.
No, you don't meet the midwives before before you're going to give birth. You have a tour around the hospital, but other than that, the first time that you see them is when you are in labor. And then you obviously hand over the birth plan. Well, that's what most people are doing here. And then you just have to hope that they will follow it. And then the Obgyni comes in last moment. So that for me, one of the other things of wanting to follow the salon is that I want to gather as much information and educate myself as much as possible, because there's a lot of cesareans here in Dubai, a lot. The percentage is huge. And I didn't want to have a cesarean. So I also had a doula, the first birth, and I wanted to have a doula again for my second birth, like an insurance type of thing, that I wouldn't be sort of pushed into cesareans or epidurals the minute I come into the hospital doors. And yeah, so education for me is one of the things that sort of sets me up for success. And this time round with the second pregnancy, and I'm getting goosebumps now, because I have never ever felt such a strong sensation in my body that I knew how this birth was going to be and how it needed to be. I knew it was going to be fast. I knew it was going to be pain-free. I actually knew that I didn't want to go to hospital. I actually wanted to have a home birth, and I wanted to be orgasmic. So there was some clearings and of fear of actually going to the hospital and having to go to my appointments again with my Obgyni. So sometimes I was holding that off a little bit. Like I sort of like stretched it with a week to see her again, and stretched it with a week to see her again. Because I'm feeling so amazing when I'm pregnant, and
in your own self, without any outside interference or opinion.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I do eat. I mean, if I hear my colleagues say, Yvonne, you're eating so healthy. So I have chocolate and I have a croissant here and there, you know, like, but I am like eating mostly organic from what I can find, and I'm eating very healthy. I like to be fit, so I'm doing my yoga, and I did lots of walking, and so yeah. But fearing the blocks and the fears of clearing the blocks and the fears, sorry, that was I think one of the major mind shifts of like, I can do this, it's gonna be orgasmic, the doctors are not going to interfere, I'm my own person, I know what's good for my body, this is what I'm gonna do. And that's that intense sensation in my body of like, I know what I want is one, if it's, I've never felt something so powerful in my life. Which then also, when I did the salon, sometimes confused me, because you obviously educate women to like be truth to yourself, and that you're in your own power, and that you do the things that you have to do, because we women inside, our intuition, your gut feeling is so powerful. And I 100% agree that. But then on the other side, here in Dubai, it is illegal to have a home birth. So, which is actually like, I did look into lots of options of like, can I do it? How can I do it? But then also COVID started, and I was like, well, you know, how this is not going to work. And in the end, I did go and decide to go to the hospital, and because there's still that like tiny little voice, what if but I did have my home birth as such, because I will probably speak about that in a little bit of time, but I was only home or in the hospital out of the house for half an hour, and he was born. So yeah, but there was a lot of listening to the affirmations and the subliminal
Work that we were
sounds.
doing. Yep.
Yes, exactly. Which really, really helped. And obviously, orgasmic birth wouldn't be orgasmic birth if you wouldn't be comfortable with yourself. So, and that's obviously what is in the salon, comes up a lot as well, to touch yourself, to be comfortable, to massage your breast, and to have your birth team around you that you 100% and fully trust. So I did speak with my husband quite a lot about like what my fears were if we were at home, or if I would have the baby in the car, because I gut feeling it was gonna be fast, and or if we would be in the hospital and something would happen. And so we did speak a lot about those fears and about of how we could change that. I wrote down a lot of my fears. I burned them, I torn them, I changed them into positive sentences. And every time when I had something in my mind that I didn't like, if I was in the car or even with clients, if I was talking about pregnancy and birth, like I just switched that thought around straight away.
Excellent.
Straight away. Yeah.
Wonderful. So you did a lot of preparation psychologically to really overcome any implanted beliefs or ideas, which I think in the world these days, unless you're living perhaps in a really isolated indigenous tribal setting where you're not influenced by the ideas that are propagated, around modern birth, which are that it's a crisis and an emergency and it's excruciatingly painful, the worst pain of your life, like all of this programming, that we do have to do conscious preparation to make sure that we haven't had that imprinted upon us. And if it has been imprinted unconsciously, that we're able to move out of that space and really direct consciously what we want to have created as our birth experience. So what were some of the biggest takeaways? You've already described some of your preparation, but things that you pulled out of the salon that you think really helped you to forge this birth experience that you had with your second child?
Yeah, so the subliminal soundtrack, I listen to that day and night, even with my daughter. And being really comfortable with myself, actually touching myself, basically, just to make sure that I was, like I said, more comfortable.
More sexually comfortable.
Yes, exactly. More sensual.
Yeah.
Even though I love being pregnant, like that doesn't mean that you're sort of like being your own, like touching yourself sensually, or like I never really like lit up a candle, or like just little things that I did for myself. I took more time for myself and be with myself and feel better in my own skin, touch my inner thighs, like my tummy, my belly, and just really connect actually with myself a lot more. I did have a yoni egg already, but I never really practiced, so I used that a lot more. So just have that real, because at the end of the day, yes, you might have a birth team around you, but for me it was like I'm the one who's going to give birth, so I want to feel orgasmic already, even before I'm going to give birth. And yeah, that's one of the things that really, I think, set me up for sort of success. Yeah.
Amazing. So how did you feel then when you were going into this second birth after doing this preparation? How were you feeling in yourself?
I felt, in myself, I felt really sensual and really good. And I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to rock this. I did have a little bit of doubt because I was going to go to hospital, and it was so against my feelings. But
so you were more worried. You were less worried about you than you were about being in a hospital setting, and that might interfere with what you were then creating and cultivating. Yes?
Totally. 100%. 100%. I was like, I just didn't want to be in the hospital, but I also didn't want to get into trouble here in Dubai.
Right.
You know,
understandable.
So, yeah, me giving birth, yeah, easy. No issues. Like I didn't have any fears around birth. I have to say as well, I'm the eldest of 6. My mom had 6 kids, 4 of them at home, and I attended their births.
Wow, so beautiful.
Yeah, so, and in Holland, maybe not so much anymore, but back in the day, there was like not really gas and air, not really epidurals. Like maybe it's coming up a little bit more, but yeah, when I was young and I saw my siblings being born, that wasn't the case. And I loved seeing my siblings being born. And I know that the oxytocin level will rise, and the love hormone will rise with the people who are around the birthing mother as well. So I was also like, I want my daughter to be at her brother's birth. So yeah, so I'm sure that if my mom had taken your salon back in the day, she would have had at least 5 or 6 orgasmic pairs for sure. And so I just imprinted that in my brain as well. Like my mom had 6 births, and like it didn't overly look like painful or, you know, yes, she was sort of growling and like making noise and sounds, but she was absolutely fine. And then I also read an article which gives me a lot of inspiration as well about the most fertile woman in the world in Uganda, who had 44 kids and not one of them was single. Yeah, I know. She had, I think, 4 sets of twins, 5 sets of triplets, and 5 sets of quadruplets. And I was like, if she can have ultra high risk pregnancies in Uganda, and from the picture it didn't seem like she was in like a very rich sort of area where she had like lots of medical care immediately around her, I was like, I can birth one.
Yeah.
You know, like this is going to be easy. And that's what I had in my mind, and that's what helped with your salon as well. Like it's easy, you know, like you just have your perfect birth team around you, feel comfortable, and I was also ready to touch myself, even if there would be people around me. And I was ready also to ask certain medical staff to leave the room if I didn't feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. So yeah, those were a couple of the inspirations that I had, because in the salon you also talk about the visualization, right? Mm-hmm. So I actually sort of visualized myself being in my bedroom, giving birth there, wanting to have a water birth, even if it was going to be in the hospital or at home. But I visualized to be at home for as long and as much as possible. And actually I visualized myself birthing at home, and I actually dreamt twice. We have a big sort of jacuzzi bath here on the balcony, and I actually dreamt twice that I was giving birth in our jacuzzi here on the balcony.
You did it there first, as above, so below.
Exactly.
You practiced.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
Well, let's talk about, all right, so then how was it? Let's hear the story of your second birth then. How did it go?
Yeah, so it started around 9:30 in the morning, and I was lucky that my mom was able to fly over here. And
The
I was
master.
like, exactly. And I was like, I feel something. And I was like, but I wasn't 100% sure. It was like a little sort of butterfly tickly feeling. And I was like, and it was every sort of 10-15 minutes straight away from the get-go. So I said to my mom, do you think this is sort of starting? And she's like, I don't know. And I was like, yeah, but you had 6 kids, like, and she's like, well, let's just wait and see, right? We're just having a good time here, and then let's just relax. And around 12 o'clock, I messaged my husband saying, I think things are sort of starting. And he's like, do you want me to come home? I was like, no, it's absolutely fine. Like, and I did my hair and my makeup because my doula was also going to take some pictures. And I was like, if it's going to happen today, I might as well just look good,
Yeah.
And so around 1:30, I said to my husband, yeah, it's moving along. It's definitely gonna happen like today or tomorrow. And he's like, do you want me to come home? I was like, no, it's fine. And he's like, do you think it's gonna happen today? And I was like, yeah. Like, I was thinking maybe like 11 or 12 o'clock at night. And he's like, okay, if you're thinking it's happening today, I'm coming home. So he said he finished one of the meetings, and he was home around 3:15. So I was downstairs in my bedroom and listening to the subliminal sounds and some hypnobirthing and just relaxing. And my mom was there, and my daughter, which what I wanted. And Kevin called the hospital. Could you please prepare the water birth room? And so they advised us to say, or to call them and say, like, if you're in labor, just let us know so we can prepare. And I 100% wanted to have a water birth. Like, there was no doubt that I didn't want that. So then the doula came around 4:15. And I felt a bit awkward because at that time I was just trying to relax and be as calm and as zen as possible. And I was laying in bed, and my daughter was there with me. And then also the doula started to massage my legs for the acupressure points to stimulate the surges a little bit more, the contractions. And I said to her, like, I feel a bit awkward because, like, I know things are moving along, but like, it's so gentle. She's like, can you tell me when you have a surge? And I was like, yeah, I'm having a surge right now. She's like, when you're talking to me? I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh, you're in very early stages. And I was like, well, yeah, but by that time they were about 5 minutes apart or so. And yeah, I was feeling a bit awkward that she was there already, but I thought, we need to have that support. And she was absolutely fine by being there. It was just, I was just feeling so good. And so she said she knew that I did the orgasmic birth salon. Like, she was totally up for it and absolutely loved the idea. So she's like, you know what? I'll go and sit with your mom and your daughter upstairs, and you and Kevin just act as if you're teenagers, like, and have some fun. So yeah, that was, I think, around maybe like 4:30 or so. So Kevin and I were just slow dancing and like just giving each other cuddles and kissing a bit and just joking like, oh, is this orgasmic birth gonna happen? And you know, like just really like connecting and being together and like really I guess getting the oxytocin up, because to have the oxytocin, like I believe that's the natural epidural, like
Yes.
you know, that is what's going to give you a pain-free birth. So I wanted to have that as high as I could. So I really I actually haven't said this to my husband, but I really treasure that moment that we had together. Just like so deeply connected and kissing and cuddling. It was just so lovely. And around 5:15, I had the longest surge. It must have lasted for about 2 minutes or so. And I walked straight away out of Kevin's arms, sort of like towards the bathroom. And the bathroom was completely dark. And I was like, we're going to the hospital. And Kevin was like, are you sure? Because this is the first sort of like intense surge. And I was like, we're going. So he was I put on my dress and he was getting everybody ready upstairs because I wanted my mom to be there. I wanted my daughter actually to be there at the birth. And so we locked the door and the elevator had to come, and I had this another long surge and I was like breathing through it. And I was like, I need to go back in the house. I need to go back in the house. This is going to go quick. This is going to go quick. And so I was sort of like moving backwards and forwards of like torn between the thought of like, I need to be at home, and then no, we need to go. And it took forever before the elevator was there. Like, I don't think we ever waited so long for the elevator to be there. Even my mom said like, it took a very long time. And so we were all in the car, and my mom and my daughter were sitting next to me at the back seats, like in the back. And we were not even out of the area where we live, and we were in front of the traffic lights. And I remember thinking, I felt very vulnerable in the daylight because it was still light. And I was wearing glasses to keep everything dark, you know, sunglasses to keep everything dark, to keep the oxytocin there. And but yeah, the vulnerability of thinking, I'm gonna have him in the car and it's daylight and people can see me. That was quite uncomfortable. And then the doula said, I said as well, like, he's coming, you know, like I can feel him coming. And the doula was like, okay, if you can, lay down on your side and do short breaths so it will calm things down, because it was making like really I don't know how to explain it, but really sort of deep sounds like those type of sounds. And she's like, okay, just breathe sort of quickly through it. And so I laid down on my mom's leg, and my daughter, she was by the time only like 2.5, and she started to touch my forehead with her finger and moving it up and down. And I just felt so delighted and so happy that she was there, because I wanted my mom to be there and my daughter. And so I thought, if we reach the hospital and he's really coming out, I'm not going to go into I'm not even going to try to get out of the car. I'll have him in the car. But the thought of having or being at the parking lot there was comfortable for me. But I got sort of like a second wind type of thing. So I felt a lot more energized when I reached the hospital, and I was like, water birth, water birth, water birth. So we ran into the hospital, me up front, everybody else behind. They wanted us to sign in. I was like, no, with sunglasses on, like cheap ass sunglasses, no flip-flops, like just on bare feet, into the emergency hallway. I saw people looking at me, but I was like, I just need to get into that water birth. And I saw the water birth room, the door, it was quite open. So I was like, I was ready to dive into that water birth pool. And I heard from behind Kevin saying like, Yvonne, you can't go in. And like, there was a midwife coming from behind her desk, and she's like, sorry, but you can't go in, somebody's in there. And I was like, yeah, preparing my pool, right? Because by that time, Kevin had called an hour and a half before to prepare the water birth room. And he called 3 times in between, twice in the car. And the car ride was only about 10 minutes, saying, it's going to go fast and we need to have the pool ready. So in my mind, I was just like, okay, at the tour, they have said, we never had anybody like having double booked pool room. So, you know, like most of the time it's always free. And they also had like a blown up pool, and we called. So I assumed that that pool was ready for me because there was a lady in there an hour and a half before, and she was going to be transitioned because she didn't want to birth in the pool, but only labor in the pool. And I wanted to birth in the pool. So when we arrived there in the hallway, and she's like, no, you can't go inside, like somebody's inside. And I was like, yeah, but to prepare my bath. And she's like, no, somebody is in labor. I was like, but we called, and listen, I need a bath. He is coming right now. Like literally, he's coming right now. Okay, she said, you know what, let's go to another room. And I was like, oh, you know what, I know the heart monitor room has a bath, I'll go in there. And she's like, no, you can't go in there because somebody just had been in there and they're cleaning it. And she's like, come into this room and then we will transition you. And so she walked into this room and into the bathroom area, and I followed her. And I remember so well, I can see myself from outside of me, and I can see myself walking in, and I asked her, I was like, does this one have a bath? And as soon as I saw it only had a shower, I said, no, this one doesn't have a bath. And I walked straight out and I walked into the heart monitor room, and she just literally followed me. The lady who was cleaning that bathroom literally came out of the bathroom. It was soaking wet, which meant for me it was clean. The room just before that, where the heart monitor is and all that, had like blood spots, bags, tissues from like somebody else. But I was like, I need to get into this bath. So the midwife, she put on the tap and filled up the bath. I took my dress off, and then my mom and daughter were going to the family room because it was a little bit hectic at that moment because it was literally gonna happen. And that's when I sort of like could relax because I was in a bath. Like, even though there was only maybe like 10 centimeters of water, at least I was in the bath. And I skipped the heart monitor, which I didn't want. I skipped the vaginal checkup, which I didn't want. And then she asked me, can I do the heart monitor like with the portable one? And I was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. So she did that once, and she said it sounded fine. I mean, it was more for her than for me, like,
right. Yeah.
And so she left, and I was sitting with my back towards the door, so I was facing the wall. And at the time, only my doula and Kevin, my husband, were there. And so I could just feel him crowning, and I could just feel him coming, but it was only us three, and I didn't want to have medical staff at my birth. Maybe in the background, yeah, but not necessarily with me. And I knew she was gone, and I could feel him coming, and I put this smile on my face because I was just so happy that I was in the bath. And I didn't feel pain, and I was just like, now this is my time to enjoy myself. So I did sort of like touch my breasts and was just like happy to be there and wanting to get the oxytocin up a lot more. And I could feel him coming, and I put this smile on my face, and I thought, yes, this is it. Like, I'm just going to enjoy this moment. And I could feel the water bag like break, and I could just feel him coming, emerging through me. And then I was like, head is out. And my husband was like, what? Because we only had been in the hospital maybe for like 6 minutes or so. Like from parking the car to like being in the bathtub. And so with the second search, I picked him up and held him under the water a little bit. And he had the reflex that I wanted to see before bringing him to my chest. And I have triple goosebumps now on my arms because I just absolutely, it was such a beautiful moment because it was just me doing everything and having no pain and just feeling so delighted that everything was coming together actually more or less how I wanted. It was, and then obviously his cry started, and then all of a sudden the bathroom was full because there was the midwife, a doctor, 2 nurses in the room. And I was like, what are all these people doing here? And my husband was like, get out. And the doctor was like, no. My husband was like, the doctor was like,
good husband. That is the role of the man, is I'm protecting my wife and you get the fuck out of here. Get away from her.
Exactly.
Good job. Tell him I said so.
I will. He knew exactly sort of like what I wanted and how I wanted things to be and about the golden hour. And I mean, we did so much research, and he supported me so much in the birth, the way how I wanted to birth, and also the afterwards, like. And so he just told them to get lost basically, and to have my golden hour. So we stayed in the bath for about 1 hour and 20 minutes.
Hang on a second. I'm all good. What's up? I'm talking on my interview. I think he heard me yell, get the fuck out. And so he was like, is somebody there bothering you?
Coming to the rescue.
Yeah, exactly. He's coming to protect me. Okay, funny. So your partner had cleared the room for you to have your private bonding time together.
Yeah, exactly. To have the golden hour and also to birth the placenta, because I actually wanted to have a dark room to birth the placenta as well, to keep the oxytocin there. Now, when I gave birth, the light was actually on, also because it was such a small room and there were no windows, which was absolutely fine, but otherwise my doula, she couldn't take pictures, and I really wanted to have good pictures and video as well. And so the light was on, and after the medical staff left, I was just really having the time to get to terms that it happened all so quickly, and it happened the way how I envisioned it to be. Even though, yes, it was in the hospital, but we only had left the house a half an hour before that maximum. Um, and yeah, and then the placenta obviously needed to come. And with my first birth, it took quite a long time before the placenta came out. And normally after about 20 to 30 minutes, you get a Pitocin shot. And with my first birth, I didn't want that. And the placenta came after an hour and 20 minutes, more or less. And so this time round, I was like, I'm going to do that again. Like, I don't want my placenta to be, or I don't want to have that Pitocin shot in my body. And so I then went out of the bath after that time, that cuddly time, and first breastfeeding, and just coming to terms that, you know, he's there, and my mom and my dad in the room, and yeah, that was so nice, such a nice moment, because my daughter and my mom only had left for about 4 or 5 minutes, and he was there. So they basically were there at the birth as well. And so I went onto the bed, and I was going to birth the placenta. So I was massaging, I was on all fours. And to get the oxytocin flowing again, or keeping it up more and more, I started to massage my breast and massage my tummy to get the placenta out. And right at that time, the Obgyni came in, walking into the door, and I was like, hi, you know, like touching my breast, and I was like, hi, I'm just birthing my placenta. And he's like, oh, hi, yeah, that's fine. Like, it all went quite quick, right? Because he wasn't there, like he wasn't even in the hospital. Yeah. And right. So and he was like, can I have a few moments? I said to him, and he's like, yeah, sure, fine, no problem. And after a couple of minutes, like, the placenta came out and everything was fine. But yeah, it was quite ironic that right at the time I was sort of like touching myself, that he was walking in. I was like, it was a bit awkward, but I was actually so happy because I felt so comfortable with actually touching myself because of your course, because of doing the salon, and yeah, just owning what I had to do to have the birth, and I was determined to have the placenta naturally as well, without any medical interventions. Yeah, and so after that, it was just all cuddles and hugs, and my daughter said, no, we are together, which like really like touched me. And yeah, that was really lovely. So
well, it's amazing that really through all of that, like the transition that you had to make, which is typically what throws women off, right? Is that they're in their home and things are progressing, they're cultivating that safe space where they're not being disturbed, they're in their own energy. And then when they make that transition to the hospital, and then suddenly there's all these people and this energy and all these outside influences coming at them, that often stalls out labor, right? That's very common. And so because you were very aware of all those stages that were coming in terms of you having to move locations, even though that wasn't your first choice, but realizing that was probably a good idea, and then getting there, but still really, I think so much as well, like you, through your visualization and your intention, paving the way for what was going to happen, so that the OBGYN wasn't even there, right? It wasn't even in the hospital. And you just, you know, in a way barreled through and like ensured that you got what you were envisioning and what you were there for, and created this protection, this layer of protection, of energetic protection and intention around you that allowed all of that to manifest the way that you had envisioned it to.
Absolutely. And I wasn't going to have it any other way. Like, also the way how I spoke to the midwife, at that moment when I said, listen, I need a bath, he is coming right now, I was really firm and thinking to myself, okay, I don't want to be like, I don't really like to use the word rude, because it wasn't rude or anything, but I really wanted to make sure that I came across, okay, this is serious. I'm going to go in a bath and I'm not going to have it any other way. Like, this is, and then when she did try to make me go to the bathroom, I was like, no, like, I'm going to go into a bath. And therefore I walked to the other room, and that was good to have that tour beforehand and I literally looked on purpose when I was into that heart monitor room in that bathroom to see if there was a bath. So maybe somewhere at the back of my mind, I was like, at 20 weeks prior, I was like sort of planning already what I was going to do in case that water birth room wasn't available. In this case, it wasn't. So I just, this was what was going to happen, and I felt it to my bones. And this was the way how it was going to be, and it worked. Like, but it wouldn't have worked if I hadn't done all the preparations up front, if I didn't watch the orgasmic birth, if I didn't do the meditations, if I didn't listen to the hue sounds that you send over and across, if I didn't have all that fear blocking to get that out of my system, and just feel it to the bone. That's the only way how I can describe how I felt. But yeah.
That's amazing. That's just incredible what you did. And in all of those circumstances, to still, like I said, supersede any potential other diversions of reality and outside influences, where we know that ideally a woman is able to just stay in her space and be undisturbed. But it's like throughout your movement and transportation, you kept that bubble really around you.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I probably also really worked on, protection for myself. This was what it was going to be, and nobody is going to change that.
So what would you want all women to know about birth? So let's say they have not had a baby before, or they've had a difficult birth experience. Like, what would you like them to know from what you learned and experienced?
Get comfortable with yourself.
Sexually and in all ways. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Clearing out any of the fears or the doubts that you might have, and you might have still some conflict in your mind, but by knowing exactly what you want, even if it's not necessarily going to unfold exactly like that, it probably will happen in one way or another. And if you don't envision and if you don't plan your birth, other people will take over, and it's not going to be the way how you wish to birth. And even if you think, oh, but I don't know what's gonna happen, and like, what if something goes wrong, or even if that would happen, then like, you still have a form of control. You still have to make decisions for yourself. You know, like, do you want to sit on all fours and you don't want to move? Don't move. Like, even if somebody is telling you, and if you know that into your deepest sort of self, then if that's your core feeling at that time, nobody can shift that. And that is one of the most important things, that you're so open when you're giving birth, and so everything can come towards you. But when you're in your power and you're educated and you're feeling good, then you can say that no, and then transition straight away into your Zen moment again of having your ecstatic and orgasmic birth. And yeah, it's educate yourself, and get comfortable sensually, sexually, having your best team around you. And that's what I had my doula and my husband, so, and that's what I wanted. So to have the people around you that you want to have there. Yeah.
I think what you're saying is so vital, because you're either cause or effect. And most people, I believe, when they go into the hospital setting, they very quickly become effect, right? Other people take control and direct the activity, and you're on this kind of timeline, and we're going to do this to you, and they tell you what's going to happen. But unless you consciously take the reins like you did to direct them, you know, no, actually, I want you to leave and I want to be in this room, you know, you tell them what to do, right? Which is how it ought to be. And that your team is there as an also strong support to back you up, right? So it's amazing, though, in a way, that you were able to be in this calm and ecstatic space and yet still take control, because some might think that to be fully surrendering within yourself, the energy of surrender might make it difficult to then also be directing people around you, right? No, do this. No, I said do this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the midwife and I think the staff were actually quite like perplexed of like, or do you call it perplexed in English? On? Yeah, exactly. Like, what's happening? That they were actually literally directed to, that I was literally going to the bathroom where they actually told me not to go to. Yeah, they were actually really shocked, and that the baby was like right there at that time, you know, like a couple of minutes later. So yeah. Yeah, you own your own body and you own your own power. And I just wish that there were, how is it possible that we have been birthing for so long and hardly anybody knows about orgasmic birth? That is just blowing my mind. And that's why I'm here to talk with you as well, because I want women to feel empowered and have orgasmic births. Like, how is it possible that we're getting cut open and like, okay, if it's really necessary in emergency cases, I totally understand, but so many times it happens because there are interventions already before, and we can do this. We have been on earth because of us. You know, like, nobody else is giving birth but us, and if we can do it orgasmically, why not? You know, like, this is the way how it's supposed to be, and that's what I 100% believe.
So what would you say that this did for you as a woman, as a person, in terms of your belief in yourself? Like, because my whole philosophy is that, yes, births are meant to be pleasurable and even orgasmic. And the fact that we've come so far off track tells us a lot about the system that's been set up to direct us in this other path. And so if we establish that a beautiful, blissful, pain-free, easy birth is normal, right? And that you have then transcended all of the programming and the conditioning and the imprinting that would say otherwise. And then you created the birth experience that you envisioned. You had that. So what would you say that that has done for you as a woman? Because I talk so much about the experience of birth as being this self-actualizing, rebirthing portal where, yes, a baby is born, but the mother is reborn, or she's born into a deeper, more powerful version of herself. And so what did you notice, if anything, any kind of shifts or differences in you, the fact that you did this? This is what you envisioned and you did it. So what did that do for you after?
It feels like, it felt like as if I'm on top of a mountain. Like it feels like as the biggest challenge that you have had, that I've overcome. So powerful, such a powerful, intense feeling. Like I just had it, like I could feel it here, like, and into my tummy, and just, I did this, I got this, and it made me a lot more confident also afterwards to make decisions. I've got this, I'm in control. I had a pain-free birth twice, and the second one was like ecstatic. So first one with a bit of pressure, but second one was ecstatic, and like, I actually want to give birth again, and I want to have a home birth, and I want it to be orgasmic, because I'm not going to go out of the house again if I will be pregnant again. And I want to do this again because I love it. And also because you just feel so empowered afterwards. And yeah, it's just the most amazing feeling. And to the words that you just said, like rebirth, that's so true, because I do feel sort of like a new me. Yes, obviously the baby is there, and I'm a mom, but you do feel as if I'm new as well again. Like it's so good. It's such a strong feeling, and connection with yourself, which is amazing. No doubt, because I did this, not any medical stuff, you know. Nobody else around you has done it. Nobody helped me. I knew what I had to do. It was me who did it, and that is what that's what giving me such a strong, empowered feeling.
Amazing. And I think this is the thing that so many people and women don't realize is the cost. Like the cost of going into a situation where they give that away, or they don't know that that's even theirs to have or walk out with, right? That I would say that's one of the biggest gifts and rewards of being a woman and having a baby, is having this opportunity to really go to the edge of life and death, right? The cusp of life and death. You are the gatekeeper, right? Literally, you are the gatekeeper. You are the person that is the facilitator of bringing life from another dimension, or however you might look at that spiritually, into this world, right? You are your own midwife of bringing a life into this world. And that people, it's been so sidelined and minimized, and women are sort of patted on the head and told, look, it's fine, your baby's fine, you're fine, what are you upset about, right? Like, so you were cut open, or you were totally out of power, or had all these things done to you. Some women even call it, there's a term now, birth rape, for the amount of violations that are done to them in these situations. And they're just kind of patted on the head and, oh, just don't worry about it, right? Like, which I think a major source of PTSD. Postpartum depression is actually PTSD, is women coming out of these experiences absolutely traumatized from what's happened, but there's no room to actually acknowledge that. And so on the other side of that, what they're really missing out on is this massive, massive spiritual transcendence opportunity and rebirthing, self-realizing experience through giving birth themselves and directing that and having utter faith in themselves, in their body, in their eons of genetic coding that has set them up for this very moment, right? The energy of life itself.
Yeah, definitely. And and that was one of the things, like what I didn't want to have, that other people were taking control of, like, of my body and my situation. I had one situation actually with my obgyne at around 36 weeks, actually just over 36 weeks, where there were 2 hospitals that I could birth in, where she would go to. And one, I had my first birth in, my daughter, and I wanted to go there again. But throughout this pregnancy, the second one, I heard so many bad stories about the hospital. And the second hospital where she was doing the birth was so far away. It was at least a 30-minute drive if there was no traffic. I mean, I wouldn't have made it. And I knew that. So I made an appointment with another obstetrician in another hospital, which was where I gave birth now. And wasn't really 100% comfortable with her, because I asked her, you know, like, do you work with any, like, sort of timelines? I want to give my birth, like, if it's going to take 3 days, it's going to take 3 days. That's what I said to her. And she's like, well, you know, after about 12 hours, you know, that's probably when I would ask you if you want to have a little bit more help to move things along. And I was like, no, I don't want that. And also, like, every 15 to 5 minutes, checking the heart rate. And I was like, no, I want to be in myself. I just want to not be touched, and I need to be in my zone to birth my baby. And also, what I don't understand is, like, some women maybe have the first birth and it takes 24 hours, and the next one could take 3 hours from the first surge or first contraction to the baby being there. Where's the timeline there? Like, you know, you open up and you birth your baby at the time that it needs to be, and not necessarily, like, move things along with, like, stripping or doing anything else. And so I went back to my initial obstetrician, and she asked, Yvonne, have you been abroad, when I entered the room? And I was like, no. She's like, did you go and see somebody else? Like, did you have your medical checkup, like your checkup? I was like, yes. So she said, okay, so you went somewhere else? I was like, yes. And she's like, well, you know, sorry, Yvonne, just to inform you, like, because you have missed your appointment, I'm not going to take you on as patient anymore. And I was like, what? And my husband was like, what? You can't do this. I'm 36 and a half weeks pregnant. Like, where is this coming from? Like, she's like, yeah, well, you missed an appointment with me, and, you know, there's other ladies out there who would love to have an appointment with me, and you know, you have seen somebody else, and therefore I'm not taking you on anymore. And I was like, but I actually wanted to ask you if I could maybe take your phone number, and because I heard so many bad things about the hospital, that I wanted to have more personal contact with my obgyne, because my friend had such a bad birth in the hospital because they didn't call the obgyne. And so she had a traumatic birth, and I didn't want that. But before I even was able to get a chance and speak out to my obgyne, she actually pushed me away already before I even was
Her
able
ego
to
is
explain my
bruised. You bruised her ego. Poor little Alpine.
exactly, yeah. And so, and she said, well, I know, Yvonne, your birth is going to be fine. You know, you'll be fine. I was like, yeah, I know I'll be fine, but you know, this is not the way how you support how you support
Yeah.
pregnant women.
Yeah.
And so this is the reason why I think women need to educate themselves and be in their full and own power, because nobody else is going to do it. My doctor wasn't
Yeah.
there.
Right.
My first initial doctor pushed me away at 36 weeks. Who does that?
Yeah.
Who does
Yeah.
that to a pregnant woman?
I'm
And
sure a lot of them do. I'm sure a lot of them do all kinds of weird power trippy stuff. I mean, we hear these stories all the time, honestly.
yeah, and if I wouldn't have been strong in my own mind and wouldn't have
Yeah.
had my fear clearing and the block clearing, I you know, like would have had maybe like a completely different birth, and but I
Right.
didn't.
You could have been full of anxiety and stress that could have really thrown
100%.
you, somebody else, off of their game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it is a real assault in a way, to maybe not for you, because you were in your power, but for somebody else who would have, been reliant on this person. And, yeah, it is a big
Yeah.
thing. Well, I'm so glad that you were able to direct your own experience and have the kind of birth that you envisioned. And it's testament to the work that you did. The proof is in the pudding, right? And realizing that that work was so vitally important, that you had to use this time through pregnancy to really pave the way, right? To create that reality and make that set really non-negotiable and set in stone, that this is what it was going to be. And you did. So amazing work,
Yeah.
really.
Thank you. Thanks to you also. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we stop?
Uh, to any pregnant ladies, trust yourself. That's, you're gonna do it, and you might as well do it orgasmically. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Yvonne.
You're welcome. No problem. It was a pleasure.
Our second guest is Skye. She is a Canadian living in Germany. Both of these women were strangers in a strange land, and despite that, they still took their power into their own hands and vaginas to direct the course of their own births and destinies. It comes out later in her story, but I wanted to mention that Skye had a C-section with one of her previous children, and so she would normally be put into the category of once a C-section, always a C-section, but she rejected that. And how?
Welcome, Skye. Delighted to have you and so excited to hear you share.
Thank you, Kim. This is really, it's an honor to be here in your presence, because I followed your work now only for a year, but it's been so powerfully life-changing that, wow, it's wonderful to be here in person to speak to you. So I'm excited to share.
Fantastic. So as I was just sharing with you before we started, is that when I created the Sexy Mama program, my whole vision, my ideal was that women would really come to build the faith and the trust in themselves and their bodies and the integrity of their connection with their partner and with the universe, that they could go into having a home birth, an unassisted birth, with full faith in the power of their body to be able to do this. And so I love your story, especially because you went from having two births that were much more in the system with all of that, the things that go along with that, to then with your third child, after doing the program, going into a fully, sovereign home birth, unassisted. So I'd love to hear that evolution for you.
Okay, sounds great. So last summer, in the middle of summer, we found out, surprisingly, this was totally unplanned, that we were with child. And when I say it wasn't the plan, we had a previous boy and a girl, and it was perfect. Life was, you know, balanced as we had expected it, like our whole childhood raising and everything was going to be. And then, yeah, we ended up finding we were pregnant with another child. And we live in Germany now, and I'm from Canada. And while it was a little bit scary to think that, you know, I was going to be in a whole new system, having children, and you know, in a foreign language, and just unfamiliar environment and everything like that, to be having a third child. A friend had sent me a link to your course, and you were just launching the Sexy Mama course for the first time. And the main thing that really got me is, you know, I'd heard that an orgasmic birth was possible. Somebody had told me, you know, like in speaking, like that, you know, these things are possible, and that's the reason that they had home birth, but I had no idea how or why that was possible. And I was really curious, and you were offering that information. So it was really divine timing that the course was being offered at the beginning of the pregnancy. So we were able to not only take the course, but have like working time after the course was over to continue learning like what there was to know and do the work, right? So I instantly like got my man convinced, because the big thing for him was, we're going to work on our sex life and we get to practice. And he was like, right? Like, it's a no-brainer for him. And what really got me too was, like, as much as that was interesting and stuff, it was like, okay, well, I've been through these other experiences before, you know, like I know what it's been like in the hospital system. I know, and I'm a nurse myself, so I have a medical background, and I'm not a baby nurse, but, you know, like I have like really a fair understanding of the inner workings of the medical system as well. So been there, done that. And then finding out that, you know, okay, well, maybe we could have a birth that was orgasmic and pleasureful versus painful and like really out of control, which was the way that my other ones was like, okay, even if I don't get there, I'm going to try for this. I need to try to know how to like have a blissful, you know, pleasurable experience rather than, you know, all the pain and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was a no-brainer, like, to give it a shot, even, you know, like, and it was a bit of investment, you know, the money for the course and everything, but we're like, you know what, like, I've spent so much money on other education, okay, this one's for ourselves, right? So gonna go there and do that. And so we signed up for the course, and I got into, you know, as we get deeper into the course, it's like, well, you start thinking, okay, well, what gets the baby in, what gets the baby out, one of the big things that you say, you know, and like that there's going to be this element of sexuality and like attention to that component of our relationship and the whole birth process. You know, it's like, okay, well, yeah, it doesn't really work in the hospital, you know, it doesn't really work in an environment where, you know, you're surrounded by strangers and bright lights and like, you know, like I really understood the whole idea about like, okay, I need to be in a safe space. I need to be like where I can trust that we're alone and that we're not going to be interrupted and we can, you know, like, and I was comfortable and not like at, you know, people interrupting and coming in. And it's just like, okay, well, I guess then if this is the way that we want to go, I'm going to have to give it a shot at home, right? So, you know, what was that going to look like?
Do you want to just back up for a moment and just briefly share like what your two previous births were like? You don't have to go through the whole stories, but just to give some idea of where you come from before stepping into this.
So the first two, well, although I'm a nurse and I've done a little bit of reading about like, you know, the birth process, I knew very, very, very little about the birthing experience. So I just basically said, okay, you know, here I'm at the hospital, took like, you know, a 2-day course prepping and stuff like that, but basically just went along with what everybody else told me and said that I needed to be doing in the whole birthing experience. It just kind of listened. I didn't have any, okay, this is, no, I did have some wishes, and my wishes were with both of the children is I wanted a water birth. Right. And, but aside from that, I was pretty much okay, like whatever the people tell me I need to do, that's, you know, I just go along with that. I'm not really the expert on this. I never done it before. And I had a doula and she was there with me and stuff like that. But what ended up happening with both of them is that they were both late. Okay. Both very, you know, like 7, 10, 2 weeks late or whatever. And I needed an induction with both of them. And both the inductions ended up being, making things very, very complicated, right? So with the first one, Angelica, she was a vaginal birth, which was, it was great. They, my water broke. It was a tiny little trickle. And then I had nothing after that for like, you know, hours and hours and hours after my water originally broke. I didn't have any contractions, and the time frame from the water breaking that they were giving at the time was that you need to have the baby within 24 hours due to infection reasons and stuff. So I got to the hospital, they tested my waters. It was positive for like, it was my waters. And they said, okay, we need to start this birth and you need to have this baby like within, you know, by that time it was like, I had 12 hours left to go. And so they induced me, and it was, also, I remember, you know, it was pretty straightforward. When it came time to push, it was like only several pushes, and she was out. Like, it was a very quick actual birth once I reached the pushing stage kind of thing. But up to that, it was very, very intense. The oxytocin really just brings on those.
Well, the pitocin.
Pardon me. It's the pitocin, yeah. It just brings on such strong contractions, and I felt really like, okay, slow this down, please. I'm not ready for this. And they're like, no, we got to up it up. This is the algorithm for like, this is what we have to do at this time. And so they, you know, like it wasn't, and also because I was attached to a line, I wanted to an IV. You know, I was like, okay, well, I'm ready to go in the water now. And like, no, you can't do that. Now this is high risk and you're attached to the Pitocin. And so, you know, my two requests in that time was I wanted to be in the water and I wanted them to slow down the Pitocin. And they're like, no, we can't do any of that for you. I was like, oh, okay, well, whatever. I'm going through this now and I'm going to get through it. But, you know, out of my control, out of my hands, they told me the things that I wanted, I wasn't able to.
Well, it's interesting when you even started the story, you said that you're not the expert. You said, I'm not the expert. They know I haven't done this before, right? Which is, the mindset of that women are programmed with, right? That no, you just sit there in the corner, you poor little thing, and we'll do it for you, right? And women then come in with that sense that they don't know what to do. Their bodies don't know what to do. Somebody has to tell them what to do, and that's, you know, amazing. We'll hear more how you've burst through that. Yeah, exactly. But that's just very typical of what women are told, you know, that no, there's no way you could possibly know. I've gone to school for this, but your body and your genes and your genetic code that's been doing this for millennia, ever since the species existed, has no idea, right?
Yeah, exactly. I know. So like unprogramming, deprogramming that for this birth was, you know, really a big part of it, right? So that was Angelica, and everything, you know, it wasn't super complicated. It's just, it wasn't what I had envisioned or what I wished when the time came, because you know what, in the end of Phoenix's birth, the one, you know, that we're speaking about now, it wasn't as I envisioned it either. However, it was within my control. I got to decide what, you know, go with the flow when things changed course, that, you know, like I wasn't planning for. I still got to say, okay, then I'm going to do this now because that's what I feel is right, not because what somebody else is telling me that I need to be doing, right? So anyways, so Angelica, pretty straightforward, but I was induced and I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do with the birth. Second time around, okay, Jasper, pregnant with Jasper, everything's good and stuff like that. He was upside down. Oh, by the way, they were both upside down, and they ended up flipping through, one through inversion, the other. But anyways, also not, he was overdue, and he had a really big head. And like 2 weeks after my due date, he was still not coming, and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna, you know, induce you again. And I was just like, well, do I really have to, you know? And they're like, well, no, it's better that you do, and all this kind of stuff. And okay, well, go with it. So this time, instead of the Pitocin, I chose the prostaglandin insert into the vagina, right? And that just brought on the birth so strong and intense, and like all of a sudden my body was writhing, and it was just like, oh my God, I'm going into labor, right? Like now, right? Like, you know, like that, at that time I had been at home because they'd given me prostaglandins. I'd come home, and I spent a bit of time in the tub, which felt really good, right? Like I was like comfortable and relaxed, and they're like, you know, but who I was with, they're like, okay, we got to get you to the hospital. The baby's coming. And so I had to get out of the tub. And at that point, it was just like, everything was just like excruciating. Right. So I get there to the hospital, and they hook me up to the monitor and everything. And they find that because whatever reason, my body's not open enough. His head's too big, whatever. His head wasn't engaged in the pelvis. And at some point, the umbilical cord slipped in between my pelvis and his head and started giving him heart decelerations. And then all of a sudden it became an emergency C-section. And before I knew it, like nobody had saw that, you know, coming. They were like, oh, you've been through birth before, you know, we know the baby can pass through the canal, all that kind of stuff. A little bit of like help with the contractions, you know, and some pain meds, and you should be all set, right? But it ended up being an emergency C-section, and I'm thinking, you know, like after, and that was fine and stuff like it. The like process, the anesthetist didn't numb me deep enough, so I actually end up feeling all the cutting that he was doing. So that was quite traumatic, like as that was happening. And he was a real jerk. I really wanted to smack him and actually cut him after, but he told me that if I didn't stop howling because I was feeling what he was cutting, that he was going to put me under. And I was just like, oh gosh, you know, like you have no idea. Like, but anyway, so that was probably, you know, the most traumatic component of that whole birth experience was that, again, I had to get out of the water. It was out of my control, and ended up being like an operation, right? So, and I was like, you know, was that necessary? You know, like had I waited till maybe he was ready to come out, had I known about opening my body a bit more, you know, maybe his head would have gone in and engaged in the pelvis, which would have avoided the, you know, so looking back, at first I kind of thought, you know, like, oh, it was necessary, his head was too big. But I was like, you know, my body wasn't ready. He wasn't ready. You know, there's something that, you know, so I don't know. But anyways, looking back, I was like, you know, it could have possibly been avoided. You know, the whole chain of intervention thing like really makes a lot of sense in all of this, right? So anyways, finally, you know, like to baby number 3 being born with Phoenix, I was like, I got to try a different way, right? You know, this is my first 2 experiences. I got to try something else. And this time I'm going to do a water birth, right? So so yeah, those were, that's where I was coming from. And then moving into the whole like work that I needed to do, you know, it's just like, I actually had a tub that we finished our bathroom here, and it was a big open space, and I was gonna like do this water birth, and I prepared the, you know, the image boards, you know, with like all my birth like wishes and stuff like that, and like it's really like felt good to have a space dedicated to where we were going to do the birth, right? And so we did all the work that we cleared the slates between my husband and myself and talked about things and worked on this, like,
within your relationship, just so people are
yeah.
clear, like that work when you're talking about this preparation. So you're talking about really positive visions of what you want to have, and then clearing any kind of debris or detritus within the energetic space of your relationship with your partner, because we talk about that being so important, that what shows up in bed shows up in birth. And so if we're within the energy of the relationship, and so the work, the preparation that we do is really clearing that slate and really making sure that we're deeply connected from a very authentic and honest place. And so when there's stuff from the past and unresolved issues, is that these things don't just get swept under the carpet, they show up. They show up in these very crucial moments like a birth. So you spent time working on that.
Yeah, lots of time on that. Lots of time on getting to know myself better, getting the jade egg,
getting to know yourself better sexually.
Sexually, knowing that there was such thing as a cervical orgasm. No idea. Had no idea. Heard about the G spot, knew about the clitoral, but that there was a cervical orgasm, like that was news to me, right? Okay, so where is that? I know the anatomy and physiology, like what that looks like, but like, what does it look like in me? All these things, right? So, and that continues to be our work. I gotta say, like, my husband and I were working on that part. That's never happened yet, the cervical orgasm, but it's like it's interesting, and it's wonderful to know that it's there and we have something to work towards, right? So, but yeah, continuing the work, and then like as we're working on all this, it's just like I looked on getting like assistance with the healthcare system to come here. Like, is there a midwife? Is there a doula that can come here and assist me to have this home birth? And at this time, midwives in Germany, they're so few and far between, and the regulations have changed because there's much more liability for them being responsible for like their assistance and everything. And so I wasn't able to find a midwife that was available at the time that we were having the baby. And, like that for my husband was a really, really scary thought, that we would do this home birth without even any assistance from a medical professional or anything. And so a lot of the work was also building up like the trust and, like inner self-belief, like, we can do this. I know I can do this. I can feel this, and so the self-belief and the self-confidence that we can do this, but also we had a backup plan that, any emergency problems would happen, we could call that local ambulance, right? And, or like drive to the nearest hospital, which is 20 minutes away. But cultivating the belief within ourselves as a couple that we're going to do this together, right? And then my friend Petra, who was here, she was like, this is so interesting, I want to be there. And she'd been through a couple of home births herself, like her own babies and a car birth, not by choice, but she'd been there and those were the circumstances. So she was like full on board of like being there just to support me. And she was exactly what I needed, what we needed, right? So did the work. And then after the course was done in, I think, December, the baby wasn't due for a couple more months. So we had time to just keep working and keep growing that belief and journaling and And so
before I had you go back and talk about your earlier births, you were really talking about how the sexual energy and thinking about how part of choosing a home birth is realizing that, okay, if what gets the baby out is what got the baby in, we need to have privacy. We need to be away from people walking in on us. We need to be at home so that we can actually be sexually intimate as part of the birth experience.
Yeah, well, so that part, and there was a couple other points that you'd made why we wanted to do the home birth, which was like in our own environment, but then being introduced to our own normal flora rather than hospital flora, and like the lights and the control and the like, the, you know, not presence to strangers, all those kinds of things. But yeah, so fast forward to birth time, you know, I was this time it was 4 days over. Phoenix was 4 days over, and we'd been intimate, you know, like in right up to the very end and stuff like that, and like till his birth. And the morning that we that Phoenix came, it was his the contractions were induced by sex, right? So we'd made love that morning, and I had a really, you know, like it's still the clitoral orgasm, but they're wonderful for me, you know, like and that was the beginning of the contractions, right? But at first they were very mild, but they rolled out in waves to get stronger and stronger. And my husband Michael, he went to work that day. But it was like shortly after that I called him back. I was like, no, okay, baby Phoenix is coming tonight, right? Like he's coming sometime today, right? So that to have that privacy, and to know that, you know, like I didn't have to get, you know, like, so we had made love, and then I was at home, but to know I didn't have to get ready and go anywhere. It was just like all I had to do was prepare and be present for that moment right there, right where we were, right? It was good. I had my candles, I had my lights, you know, I had my music, I had my birth playlist, you know, it's just like, and it was all how I wanted things. And then as I was feeling contractions getting stronger, well, at first I did some cleaning because, you know, what am I going to do, right? He's coming. But then afterwards, like, I ran the tub and got in the water and like in and out of water as much as I wanted that day. And it was just like, you know, it was so good. And it's just, so the contractions were growing strong. And, you know, like, I got to say, of course, you know, like we had the intent to do this experience, but of course there's like a whole lot of fear around, like, am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be able to handle the pain? What if something goes wrong? And I was like, whatever's meant to be will be. I knew that, right? And however it's, I will just go with it. And, you know, if I know that I need to go to hospital, I know when I need to go to the hospital. I can tell that. I don't need somebody to tell me that, okay, we got to go now. I can feel and I can tell and I can be the authoritative on that decision, right? And
of you, the authority of you. And I just wanted to say, like, what an evolution from, say, you know, the other experiences where you're like, well, look, I'll know if there isn't something going right. Like, I will know intuitively, my body will know, I will know. Beautiful.
And to really go with that and be so strong on that, because of course, not only is there my own fears, you know, like, or this little voice, you know, but I journaled about it, right? And I got it out. And that's in my birth affirmations as well. And in the subliminal birthing messages that we did with the waves and everything like that, you know, like I really got out the fears. And then there's the fears of my husband, you know, like all he's concerned is, you know, like, is she going to be okay? Like, I believe her. If she says she can do it, she's a strong person, but what if, right? And then there's the other external family. What are you doing? You know, like, and in Germany, this is unheard of, right? Like,
Tell you that home births are unheard of.
Well, unassisted to this extent.
Right.
They do them, and there's midwives, but there was a move towards them, and then they're kind of pulling back again because of the liability issues that I'm saying, right? Like, and so there's not as many midwives available. They're more liable for just circumstances than they used to be, I guess, right? That's what the midwives have told me, right? And you know, like, so like to have like an unassisted birth like that, it was like lots of people told me you shouldn't do that. It's very irresponsible. And I was like, what are you talking about? This is like the most responsible thing I'm doing. I'm taking and it's funny how people think that you're being naive and that you're you know, and I was just like, I am becoming so informed and so much more aware and doing like this internal and external work to come to this point, you know, like, how is that irresponsible, right? But like, so the
way you described yourself Well, the way you described yourself in the first birth sounds actually more naive, right? Like when you're
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I don't know what I'm doing. Like these other people are experts. Like I'm just going to listen to them. They know better than me. Like to me, that's more naive than
Mhm.
you, as you're saying, be fully informed and researched and grounded and confident in yourself and knowing all there is to know. And then
Mhm.
also having a really unshakable faith in your own body and self.
Mhm. Yeah, that unshakable. It was just like, as much as I had little doubts, it was just like, no, I can do this, right? No, I know I can, right? But to, you know, there's people, there's Oma and Opa who are, you know, they're knowing what's going on, and they're like, well, you shouldn't be doing this. And my doctor, who says, like, she cared for me up into the point, but I was like, I don't want to be birthing in the hospital. I want to do this at home, and these are my reasons. And I sent her some of your work and stuff like that. And yeah, like she right up to the end said it was such an irresponsible thing to be doing, and how could you be putting yourself and the baby's life in danger like that? And I was just like, well, thank you very much. You don't have very much time that I can go into all of this, but my decision, not yours, right? Like,
Good for you that you're getting it from all angles and still able to hold your ground. That's amazing.
well, yeah, but you know, like just being conscientious of like where that comes from, and then not even go there with that stuff, because I don't need to waste my energy on like convincing other people. I need to be paying attention to like what's happening to me and take care of that, right? So it's just like, okay, distance. And so yeah, like well then, okay, so back to the day that Phoenix was born, like the contractions, you know, they started coming, and I was like, oh my god, this is really exciting, like I'm gonna meet him today, you know, like he's coming. I'm like, what if I can't handle the pain? But no, I can. Okay, so then I really, that's began going into inside, right? Okay, like I did a lot of the circling, you know, because all my other births had been, you know, like pain medications had been, you know, it was the gas and the Dilaudid and like everything that, you know, like I've been given like to help ease that pain. This time it was going to be, I was going to do it on my own. Can I handle this, right? Can I breathe enough to get into it? Can I circle enough? And I really, yes, a lot of eyes closed and going in and feeling that. And it's just like knowing that this is every feeling that I'm feeling is bringing me closer to meeting my baby, right? And it was so exciting. It's just like, of course I can do this. I was meant to do this, right? And speaking about having meant to do this, what I wanted to mention is that I honestly believe that this, because Phoenix was a surprise, because we weren't like planning on him, I think he really came to us to allow us to have this other experience, right? So, you know, to see that there's a different way, right? And you know, because it wasn't a choice that I would have made on my own, right? I wasn't gonna, I was done having kids. I'm 40 now, and you know, like I didn't want to, you know, go through pregnancy. As beautiful as it is, it's long and it's very demanding of my body, and you know, like, and another child, and we were good. So I wasn't going there again, but he came to, I feel, allow us to have this other experience, that things could be different. So that's one of the reasons he came. I think there's many, but he allowed us that, right?
I love
So
that.
yeah, he was divine, but I summoned him. I know I summoned him subconsciously, because I did a painting just before I was pregnant. I did my first yoni painting, and it was actually of like the tree of life and roots, because being in Germany is a new thing. Roots to ground myself, the tree of life growing, and in the shape of like a lot of fire and all that kind of stuff. It was a yoni painting that I'd done, and that was one moon. The following moon, I found out that I was pregnant. So I summoned him through without even knowing it.
Yeah.
But like, and that it was a surprise. I was like, oh, and a really good reason when Michael said Phoenix for a name. It was just like, that's perfect, okay? Because there was fire and there's grounding, there was earth, there was birth from and renewal, and it just all, it was just, okay, so divine, yeah. So all of this understanding, all of this, this journey that I traveled that brought me to this point said to me, yes, I'm going to get through this and it's going to be no problem. But I was still very open to how that would unfold because I didn't know, right? So the contractions came and it was circling and spiraling as you call it, and going into it and breathing into it, and going into the bath a lot. And you know, Michael came home, he had been at work, he came home, he picked up the kids, he drove them to Oma and Opa so we could have our alone time. Petra was back and forth dealing with her kids and then coming back to check on me. And then finally, yeah, I had a few periods of being alone, but then finally everybody was here. Like Petra and Michael were here and all the kids were gone. And so in and out of the tub and kind of did my own thing for a long time. And because I was so relaxed and so comfortable with all of everything, it felt like my labor wasn't progressing at all. So hours go by and, you know, I was like, I don't know, am I opening? And I'm like, of course I'm opening, you know, with each contraction I'm opening, but it's just like, I don't see anything, right? I'm trying to feel, and do I feel anything? And, but my cervix is very far back and stuff. And it's tilted in a, like, posteriorly, so like I couldn't feel anything, and I was like, okay, I just got to trust, you know, I'm getting there. And then Michael got tired because by this time, you know, it's getting into the night, and he goes and lies down for a little bit of a rest. And I'd been in the tub, and I was just like, okay, I don't want to be in the tub anymore, like, and I'd been up and walking around, and I was like, I got out of the tub and I was just like, you know, I feel I need to lie down. And I ended up side lying on the floor. I'd made a nest beside the tub and full of pillows and blankets because we have a really big shower area. I made a nest there, and I ended up lying on my left side and having one leg up on the tub. And all of a sudden, like, and when I say I wasn't sure if my contractions or if my labor was progressing, my contractions were coming so irregularly. Like it was like 5 minutes, and then it was 1 minute apart, and then it was like 30 seconds to the next one, and then it was like 2 minutes, and it was just like nothing regular. And I was just like, okay, that is what it is, you know, but okay. And then all of a sudden, everything changed. The total transition. And again, I got that feeling, oh my God, I don't know if I can go through with this. Because also I was very tired because I'd been like up and excited all day long and stuff. And my body was just getting, you know, weary, right? And I was like, can I do this? Can I handle this? And I had, so the urge to push, or what was it? Well, I can't remember. What do you call it when the
ejection reflex.
The ejection reflex thing, yeah, that. Because, you know, like I had no urges to push or anything prior to that. The contractions were coming. I was kind of breathing through them and circling through them and being warm in the bath through them. And then all of a sudden, it was baby's coming time, right? And I had one big push and his head started crowning. A second big push, his head was through, and a third push and the baby was out. And it was just like, boom, he was there. And I was just like, and I was doing this myself. Petra was there. She had her helping like hold my leg up just so that I could have the space that I needed to, you know, open. And she was there, but she wasn't being like, she wasn't in there in my face or down there or anything. She was just present, right? And supporting me like how it seemed like she thought, like not invasively present, just present. And so I got to do like all of it, like, and I was down there, yeah, and I could feel his head coming out. I was like, oh my God, the baby's head's there. And then I was getting all excited, and yeah, like, and then 3 pushes, he was out, and I got to pull him out of me, and I was like, oh my God, my baby's here. Like, we've done this. This is, you know, like, and there was a few things like afterwards, like I was so tired, like just weary of my muscles and everything shaking. But I couldn't even, I was on my side, I couldn't even sit myself up with the baby in my arms and everything. And she had to help me to sit up, and his cord was wrapped around his neck, and I was like, okay, but you know, he was still attached, and so I just unwound it. It wasn't tight or anything like that, you know, it was just.
Which is common, right? Like
Yeah,
this, I forget what the stats are, but they're really high of the cord wrapping, which is just like you're saying, very loose typically. Most of the time, it's not a cause for concern or intervention.
Exactly.
It just is what it is. Yeah.
And I knew that too. So that really made me feel, okay, this is okay. You know, like all these things are okay, right? Like all the things that were conditioned to really freak us out, like, oh, this is a complicated birth, or these birth complications, you can't do anything without the medical system. It's just like, no, you know. And so like I read a lot of the birth stories and seen the birth videos of the people who had been like through babies that were born like upside down, or like, you know, in the water bag. You know, there's that one lady, she had the 4 totally different births, and they were all like really, one on the toilet and then one upside down and then one in the water bag, and like they were all so different, but like yeah, or twins or whatever, just complicated births. And it's just like, well, if they can all go through this, you know, like that really helped to see that these things that are so scary sounding are actually quite normal, or can be normal, and we can get through them too, right? Like we don't need, you know, like we need to believe in ourselves to get through them. We don't always need the medical intervention and the knife, right? Like to fix the problems, right? So yeah, I just kind of, okay, I had known you'd mentioned that as well. It's common. And so unwrapped the cord, and he had like he was a little bit snarky, like he had mucus and stuff in his nose and his mouth, and it kind of like sucked it out or whatever, and then he was breathing, and it was very dark because we'd left the lights, and it was only candlelight in there, and so, but it was very dark. But I looked at him and I was like, oh my God, he's here. And yeah, we left the cord on, and let the placenta like stay on for like 4 hours, because I wanted to give all the extra, you know, like nutrients to him through the line and through the placenta, through the umbilical cord. But we had also wanted to, I did homeopathic medicine and placenta encapsulation with the placenta, right? So there's time limits. Beautiful. That you can, yeah, keep those things out in the open before it starts to go bad and not be able to be prepared anymore, right? So right. We did the 4 hour time limit or whatever, which was also different, you know, like I had no idea that, you know, like you could, it's a good idea to wait, right? And I knew I didn't want to do lotus birth. I didn't want to be walking around with like for like 2 weeks or anything like that. But you know, like give it that extra time, and also then do the preparations with the placenta like I wanted to. And so after that, like I went back into the tub. Eventually the placenta came. It was like maybe 5-10 minutes afterwards, birthed the placenta. And then like, that was kind of a juggle, like getting the placenta in a container that I could carry around with me. But then I wanted to go into the bath. Him and I, we had a bath for, you know, it was our first bath. And it was so, I get to do whatever I want right now, right? Like my baby's born, he's here, he's beautiful, he's strong, he's doing great. He had good APGAR scores, right? And yeah, I was free, and we were free to, you know, like hold him, and he never left my side, right? And so, you know, we washed, and then we had a nap, and afterwards, like I worked the placenta myself, cut the cord, and prepared the pieces that we needed to send off and freeze and do all our medicine with it. And yeah, like it was fantastic. It was just like, we did it. Like we were so proud, we were so, you know, and it's just so confirming that like yeah, we have this knowledge, we have this wisdom inside us, we have the ability to do that. Like, thank you, right? Thank you for, it was divine timing. Your course came exactly when I needed to know this stuff, right? So it was like, so it was very, yeah. And you'd mentioned some things like, once you go through a process like that, like once you go through like knowing like what you're able to do and stuff like that, your response to the rest of the world when they tell you this or that is just like, no, that's not how it is for me, and this is how it thinks for whatever your ideas. But like, you're so much stronger, you're so much more, like you stick to your guns because right, because you have that inner knowing, right? And so it's been awesome.
This
Yeah.
is an amazing point here. Like what you're saying about the rebirthing process. And this is such a huge thing that gets overlooked in the rush to kind of tell women, oh, it's okay that you had all those things done to you. At least you're healthy and your baby's healthy. Maybe that's the case. But overlooking this incredible rebirthing, self-actualizing potential that lies in every birth for every woman. And, I love hearing that was already, very clear to you, that your confidence, your knowingness, your inner knowingness, and not really taking shit, right? It's like, you can't tell me what to do and override my knowingness, because my knowingness is me. I have my own truth, and you may have your own truth, but I can stick to mine. I'm not going to be subjugated to yours.
Yeah. Because, and we needed that, the amount of like strength that we needed to have within and stand up for what we did, knowing that what we did was right, against the system. When we got back out into the system, it was just like, because people were wagging fingers and how could you do this, like the doctor, my OBGYN, which I haven't gone back to since, because like, you don't need to treat me like that, like wagging her finger, and she was like really flustered and like, like just really taking everything, like our decision personally, that it could have been like, I don't know, like high risk, and it would have reflected on her practice or something. I don't know, like that. Like, but like she was,
I think it just offends them that it goes against their whole, every bit of indoctrination that they've received, right? That you can't do this, they have to help you. And you're just not trying to, but throwing it in their face by saying, well, we did it and we kicked ass, and without a hitch, girl.
Yeah. So she was one of the ones that gave us a lot of like, like problems afterwards. And then also to register a baby here in Germany, you need to have attendance of a midwife or a doctor to sign to say that that baby is actually came from you. Otherwise, it's breach of like, or close to breach of like possible human trafficking, that, okay, if nobody else witnessed this baby coming out of you, then who can say that it's your baby? And it's just like, well, I know it's my baby. My husband knows it's my baby. Like, I was pregnant 2 weeks ago and now this baby's in my arms. Yes, this is my baby, but you need to have a professional to declare this for you in this country. So, and we didn't know, we're like, okay, well, let's see how. Our thoughts were like, okay, like get a little bit informed about that stuff, but we really don't know how things are going to roll out. So let's just, have the baby, and maybe he'll be born at home, but there's a chance if we needed to go to the hospital, it could have been born in the hospital too. So we didn't really, like look into it too much. And then it was afterwards, then we show up with this baby, and you got to, like do all these tests, and you got to declare that. And people didn't want to declare that it was my child, right? And so to get registered and even have a birth certificate and stuff like that was a big struggle here. So, like Michael and I had to really come together, and people were like, well, why didn't you just birth in the hospital? And we're like, well, because we wanted to do this at home. Well, why didn't you have a doctor? Well, there wasn't anybody available, and that wasn't going to change my decision for wanting to do this at home, Well, what if something happened? Well, if something happened, then we would have done A, B, C, or D, right? But like, that's, so to find that inner strength again afterwards was really, like, we did the right thing for us, and there's no more discussion about that. Right? Like, yeah, so
I think that this is another key. Yeah, and I think that this is another key thing that people don't realize is a positive outcome of having an empowered birth, is that it bonds you, even though your partner happened to not be in the space, but he supported the entire, well, he was adjunct, I guess, but supported. This was a collective endeavor with you guys. And then the bonding that creates between the two of you, and as you're saying, like the strength and the confidence to then go out into the world. I mean, you had a particularly unique circumstance where you had to prove that it was your baby, or just deal with people's reactions to your decision. But overall, I would say as parents, where most people have the experience of having a disenfranchised, disempowered, even violent birth. And I think that then that trauma bonds, or, dissociates the couple from that experience, although they don't really know why. They can't articulate it. They just buy into the story that, oh, it's normal. After you have children, you kind of grow apart or don't have that much sex, and they can placate themselves with that, versus the couple who actually pivots off of that experience to become a stronger couple, makes them a more solid parenting unit. They're more alive afterward. Like, in my vision, that's what an empowered birth does, versus a disempowered birth actually does. It creates a chasm between a couple.
Yeah. No, since we started, like, since this birth, and since we started reading courses, like, yeah, it is, yeah, definitely bonded us, strengthened us together. And like the continuum with the whole schooling thing, right? Like, definitely, Germany's a very strict system for schooling, and attendance is mandatory. Like, you are not allowed to homeschool. You're not allowed to have your kids home for like maybe more than a day or so without a doctor's note. There's no discretion. Like, you must attend school. Otherwise, the police can come and not only like force a child to go back to school, but involve the social system to the point where people are threatened to have the children taken away if you want to, like, let's say, I don't know, go on vacation 2 weeks early and travel somewhere and take that time off and do your own schooling. Like, it's absolute, like, so there's a whole different schooling system here, which like, I'm all about. When we were younger, we traveled down to Mexico for a couple months at a time, my dad and my brother and I, and he brought our schoolwork with us, and we did that, all that kind of stuff on the road. So we really, like, got a benefit of like traveling and having schooling in different ways, seeing that, it's possible to do homeschooling. And I really want to do that with our kids. Who knows, maybe we'll go to Indonesia, because my mom is Indonesian, so I know all your stories about Bali. So like, maybe we want to go to Indonesia for a year or something, but like, have the freedom to do that, and to be on board, because like, like, that's the next step in this. In case that the babies are born, they're growing up, now they join the school system for the next 18 years. We're in the system, like, we need to be, Michael and I need to be strong and together on our decisions about like what we believe is right or wrong for our children, to go against that if we need to, if we want to, right? And so that relationship building, and for the well-being, like, not only for ourselves but for our children and us as a family unit, is just, it's so powerful, it's so important. It's so like, we need to have this good foundation to propel our family into like the world, right? And so yeah, it's just all been really good stuff that we needed to go through and experience, and come to realize that we had, like, this stuff within as well. So
So you had this invincible attitude throughout, and this is despite you didn't even talk about the fact that you would be classed as a VBAC, right? So wanting to have a vaginal birth after cesarean, and you were whatever. I'm still going to do it. I'll do it at home.
Yeah, well, because I would have to say, because I'd seen so many of the other birth stories and read some, like, and heard the other women who had done it, like, it was like, okay, well, they can do it, I can do it. And it was really about just embracing the idea of opening, because my OBGYN, she said, you shouldn't be risking something like this. You're high risk because you could tear. And my response to that was, okay, well, I would be tearing if I was too stressed and tense and my body wasn't ready to open up to this baby. But if I could allow that opening to happen, if I could allow the space to be created, and just surrender and let things happen through openness, then I really believe that I could go through with this. That was the one thing that I needed to overcome, was being too tense and out of my control, rather coming to be open in this.
So beautiful. Was there anything that you would want to say to women who were perhaps where you were at some point, like unsure and doubtful? And I think you've kind of said it throughout your story, but is there anything else you would say directly to them?
I would say just really open to that possibility that, there is another way. And really, I think the big thing for me, and even at this time, has been the message of go within, because, as sometimes we don't know what to think by looking out in the outside world. Sometimes we don't know what to believe. Sometimes, but my strength has been within, learning that, when I go there, I will find the answers that I need. It's a lot of inner stuff. So be open to it, and be willing to have a look on that inside. And that's a really good message too during this Corona time, right? Because the world is actually telling us, and it's coming into fall, the world is telling us this is a time to go within. It's a really good time for inner reflection, inner work, inner knowing, so yeah, go within. It's powerful.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy for you, and just amazing. Your story is incredible.
How amazing were all of these stories? I want to bombard you with them so that you have more positive programming to overtake any of your past negative programming. I love that each of these women took the reins on her own birth, which is a metaphor for her life. And each of them, in so doing, came out of the experience stronger, wilder, wiser, and more grounded in her inner knowing and appreciation of herself, with the knowledge that she can do anything. This is the biggest gift and parenting preparation that women receive in birthing their own children of their own volition. And this is what millions of women every day miss out on, and they don't know what they don't know. I believe that so much PTSD, i.e. postpartum depression, self-loathing, and lack of parenting confidence could be totally transformed in women having a natural birth through their own power. Transformed into bliss, confidence, empowerment, and a strengthened inner knowing that serves us in all areas of our lives. This is why I created the Sexy Mama Salon. I want to help you shed whatever conditioning and fear and programming that have been superimposed on top of your innate wisdom and the intuition and the genetic intelligence that we all have and that can guide you fearlessly and confidently through the entire process. You heard the levels of confidence that these women had in themselves. You heard it in their voices and through their actions and how they dealt with every possible obstacle that was in their way. They knew they could do this, and so can you. The Sexy Mama Salon is open now and just started yesterday. You can sign up for the salon via the link below this video. You can also find it at kimanami.com. Look under Sexual Savant Salons and then click on Sexy Mama.